Today's lecture will be about graphing with SPSS. I'm going to start by showing you how to enter the variables and some basics of entering your data and importing your data, and then we'll go into some graphing. So let me get SPSS opened up here and get started on it. While that's opening, we're going to pretend that a particular math teacher was curious about whether there was a connection between how much homework her students did and their math achievement scores at the end of the quarter. So she surveyed her students and asked, how many hours do you spend per week doing math homework? And here's the responses she got. Then at the end of the quarter, she recorded each student's score on their quarterly math test, and these are the scores that she got. And then, just because she thought there might be a difference, she recorded whether each student was a boy or a girl. So she's got the female and the male students there. So now it's time to look at SPSS. When you open SPSS, it'll open like this, and I'm going to click on a new data set. And what I get is I get two windows that always pop open. This one, which looks a little bit like a spreadsheet, is called the data editor. And in it, each column represents a variable, and each row represents a case. In this example, each row is going to represent a different student. Now be very careful if you are familiar with spreadsheets, because SPSS does not act like a spreadsheet. It's a database, and you can get very confused if you try to make it think like a spreadsheet thinks. So kind of put all of that beyond you and think database here. Now whenever SPSS opens up, there are two windows. You've got your data editor, and then the other one is going to be your output document. And everything you do in SPSS is going to be documented in your output. And so notice the first thing, I told it to open a new file. And so in my output, I get a record of what the computer did. So let's come back to the data editor. First thing I'm going to do is set up my variables for the tops of each of these columns. Variables are going to be columns. So at the bottom, I've got a data view and a variable view, a data view and a variable view. In the variable view, I can set up what my variables are going to be. So let me move this over here just a little bit so we can go back to our example here from this math teacher. Well, the first variable that she's got here are the number of hours a week. So these are, I'm just going to call this homework. You can give it whatever name you want. Numeric is good. Width, don't worry about. Decimals, these are all in whole numbers, so I'm going to make my decimal 0. And here's my label that's going to show up. I'm going to call it hours homework, because I like to confuse myself with short names all the time. Values, don't need that, missing all of that. Come over here to measure. This is a scale. The numbers represent hours, so it's on a scale measurement, and I have to tell SPSS that about this homework variable. The next variable is going to be the score on their test. That's the other variable I've got. Everything's the same. I'm going to make that a 0 decimal. The label I'll get is math score. And once again, I'm going to come over here to the measure and change it to a scale, because these scores, actually, I want SPSS to work with them as numbers, as they are. Now finally, I've got a variable. Let me get this out of the way here a bit. I've got a variable that's gender. So boys and the girls. And I'm going to go with no decimals there. And this is gender. Now the problem I've got here is that SPSS won't work with words. And so I'm going to have to code my data. So I'm going to go to my values property of this gender variable. I'm going to say that 0 equals male and add that. And I'm going to say that 1 represents female. And when I've got that set in, I'm going to click OK. Now over in my measure, I'm going to tell SPSS that that's nominal, that those numbers for those values don't mean numbers. They're the names of things. So I've got that all set, and I can go to my data view, and now I've got homework and a place where I can put the score and the gender. Sorry. Now, this teacher put things into a spreadsheet just because that's usually easier. But the problem is that in the spreadsheet, it's got the words female and male. So I can go along and change those if I want so that I've got numbers. Doesn't matter, or I can do a find and replace where I'm going to replace them. And I'm going to say that wherever I've got female, put a 1 instead. I'm going to replace all. And wherever it says male, I'm going to have it replace that with a 0, which is great. And then you've got them in numbers. You can do this in your spreadsheet, or you can do it over here in SPSS. It's not going to matter. The nice part about doing it in the spreadsheet is if I had hundreds and hundreds of these, it would be really easy to do a find and replace. But now I just have to copy the data that I want. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to paste it. Now I do have an import, and that's fine too. I can actually open up data and pull it right in from Excel and other spreadsheets like that. But this is such a small data set, I'm just going to do a copy and paste. So now I have my information on their homework, the score they got, and their gender. I don't know why I'm stuck on agenda today. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of graphing here. Under graphs, I've got a chart builder. And the chart builder opens up. Sometimes this window isn't open, the elements property, and to get it back you click here, close it here. And what it does is it lets me configure the different elements of my chart. Well, the first chart I'm curious about is I want to make a box plot that shows the achievement. What does the achievement look like in this class? So I'm going to click on box plot, and I'm going to drag this up here like this. Now, along the x-axis, I want to know the score of the achievement. Excuse me. I want to put that on the y-axis. Okay, now over here, I could do different things, and I could label things and math score and the minimum and the maximum, and I could change my increments, but I don't want to do all that. And what I get is, over in my output document, I get the box plot, and I can change these labels. I can edit this. Box plot for math score. And you can see that I've got a maximum and a minimum. There's my median, my 75th percentile, my first quartile, and I've got an outlier down here, this student who scored 22%. So this is inside my output file. This would be a good time to save my output file so that I don't lose it. I'll put it in my documents, I guess, and I'm going to call this homework example. Okay. Well, that was really interesting, but this time I'm going to come back here and graph it, and this time I'm thinking I kind of want to know if there's a difference between the boys and the girls. I want to see if there's a difference in there. So in this, I'm going to take gender, and I'm going to drag it down to the x-axis, because I'm saying I want you to look at it by male and by female. And this time I get exactly that. So this is, I'm going to edit this and say that this is the box plot for math scores by gender. And you can see that the male spread is much different than the female spread here in the dispersion of these scores. Well, then I can say, you know what, I want to look at the same thing, but this time I want to see if there's a difference in the hours they spend on homework. And you saw that I just dragged it right over here and click OK. And here I get the different box plot representations for the hours of homework by gender. And I'm editing in here inside my output file, so I'm going to save that. Well, that was really interesting. I wonder what the frequency curves look like. So instead of box plots here, I'm going to click on reset to get back to a blank, and this time I want to go to a histogram. You'll remember that that's the bars that show us the frequencies for each thing. So I'm going to take this basic one and drag it up here into my gallery. And along the x-axis, I want to know what the frequency is for the different math scores. And notice that it changed to histogram over here. It knew that I wanted the frequencies. And over here I could change my minimums and my maximums and all of that. So I'm going to click OK. And here's my histogram for frequency of each math score. And you can see that 6 students scored right in here, and 4 scored right in here, and 3 right in here. So I've got my histogram shape right there in my output. So instead, maybe I want to see what the frequency is for the hours of homework. So I'm going to drag that down here instead. And once again, I get my histogram. It's interesting that the two curves are kind of opposite, aren't they? So here's my histogram for hours of homework by gender. Whoops, not by gender. This is the whole thing. What am I saying by gender? Did I do that up here? No, I didn't. Okay, so this is the histogram for the hours of homework. Now, if I want to, I can actually put gender in here, and I can group it by gender. So I'm going to reset it. This time, no, that's not what I want. Forget that. Let me go back to graphs. And I'm going to, I could do a bargram that would give me frequencies, or the histogram. Now, this is pretty well it for graphing. I want you to play around with these different types of graphs. You can try a scatter dot, see how that works, and the different pieces like that. So you're all set to go.